This is Plant-Based Briefing, Greenwashing the Field, Funding and Misleading Information in Dairy Sustainability Research, Part 2 by Matt Vitello at switchforgood.org. And I'm Marian Erickson, host of this curated content plant-based podcast, where I narrate articles on plant-based and vegan living with permission in about 10 minutes or less every weekday. But today's episode would have been longer than that, so it's a two-parter. I read the first half on the previous episode, so go back and listen to that first, and then jump back here for part 2. And now let's get to today's plant-based briefing. Greenwashing the Field, Funding and Misleading Information in Dairy Sustainability Research, Part 2 by Matt Vitello at switchforgood.org. Other researchers and centers with industry funding. Colorado State University has established the Ag Next Center, which similarly produces research that suggests the potential sustainability of animal agriculture. Ag Next has even put out infographics that suggest animal ag is instrumental to feeding humanity, and that animal ag's role in greenhouse gas emissions is much slimmer than other sectors. Ag Next director Dr. Kimberly Stackhouse Lawson was a PhD student of Mitlearner's and has a history of working with the beef industry. Once again, tracing the money to the centers and their directors demonstrates that there is a clear connection between beef and dairy funds and the research aimed to paint the industries as sustainable and instrumental in feeding our growing population, when there's plenty of research to suggest just the opposite. Yet another prominent voice who is optimistic about the future of animal agriculture, of the dairy industry in particular, is Juan Tricarico. Dr. Tricarico's research focuses on improving the sustainability of dairy production, and he has contributed to larger analysis of dairy's GHG emissions. He contributes to articles like this one linked here, saying dairy land use is a sustainable way to source nutrients, and citing a study that, no surprise, is also funded by the Dairy Checkoff. There are plenty of studies on the contrary that suggest land use change itself is a major driver of climate change, and the study Tricarico cites fails to account for the massive increases in land that will be needed to support dairy cows in the future in both cropland and cattle ranges, especially given that climate change itself is making dairy production harder. Tricarico works as vice president of the Innovation Center for U.S. Dairy, closely associated with the Dairy Checkoff program in the U.S. The Dairy Checkoff program also produces infographics and articles like the one mentioned in the previous paragraph, on which Tricarico is a significant voice. Much like the beef checkoff now, the USDA's handling of the dairy checkoff has come under fire in the past for its lack of transparency, specifically regarding its spending. Why greenwashing matters. The through line in all of the researchers and centers described in this article who challenge the severity of the role of animal agriculture in climate change is that they are all connected to and in some way financially bolstered by federal checkoff programs. Some of the researchers listed are better at disclosing these associations than others, Mitlearner in particular having a dubious record regarding such disclosures. While certainly unethical, concealing or failing to disclose these ties is second in significance to the ties themselves. It is in the best financial interest of these researchers and centers to uphold the existence of animal agriculture. No one could blame them for their frequent voicing of opinions against those who wish to see animal agriculture reduced or eliminated. This is a threat to their entire livelihoods. But honestly, which would you rather have? A future in which New York City is still above the rising tide? A future for your children and grandchildren in which we actually meet the goals we set in the Paris Agreement? Or a future where we still have animal products at every meal, but the warming climate causes millions to die by 2050 alone? The only way to inoculate ourselves against the massive amounts of capital the checkoff programs, and for that matter fossil fuel lobbies, have at their disposal is to stay curious about the sources of the research and advertisements we see on a daily basis, while remaining open-minded to credible information. This is a good strategy in general for fighting the dangers of rising anti-intellectualism in the U.S. The more you challenge your own presuppositions and the information you see in ads, the less susceptible you will be to greenwashing. You just listened to Greenwashing the Field, Funding and Misleading Information in Dairy Sustainability Research, Part 2 by Matt Vitello at switchforgood.org, and I'm your host, Marian Erickson. I've done a number of other episodes relating to this topic. I'll link some of them in the show notes, including 1129 and 30, The Truth Behind the Numbers by Sailesh Rao at climatehealers.org, 1056 and 57, Maha's natural foods obsession doesn't account for the way we actually eat, 9:59 and 60, how Big Meat worked to rebrand in 2024 using disinformation. 10:15, why eating local isn't a climate solution. 9:48, what COP29 had to say about food systems. 7:79, is climate-friendly beef always just greenwashing? 6:43 and 6:44, 6 greenwashing terms Big Ag is bringing to COP28. 4:47, how Big Dairy infiltrated TikTok. And 2:43, how grass-fed beef is duping consumers again. So check those out and please share this episode with anyone who might benefit, and thanks for listening.